the nature of the sex in the film, it is, kinky dom sub sex. I wanted to not shy away from the fact that there's brutality involved in that, but that hopefully there are also like shades of tenderness and there's all sorts of, I guess, dynamics between characters going on in those scenes, independent of it just being like a fucking scene.
Welcome back to Director's Notes.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be back.
No, it's brilliant. So we had you for your short Wren Boys,
Yeah,
which yeah, I watched it today just to kind of remind myself. And you like a kind of subverted queer tale.
I do. I do. I think that as far back as I've been making films, I think they can probably fit into that bracket of a sort of subverted queer tale. The first short film I ever made was about a guy like, funny, I'm sat opposite a wall now. It was about a guy who was masturbating in his bed while his brother was shagging someone in the next door room. And yeah, it's just been a consistent interest of mine is thinking of thinking of queer tropes and how sometimes I feel like I don't necessarily fit into those tropes or and then trying to like dig a story out of that which kind of says something to me and hopefully to other people.
Yeah, I think, those are always the best ones, and you can tell when a story has resonance with the person who's written it and is directing it, and you just get the whole feel. And also, I was really chuffed. I saw Wren Boys was on Disney.
It is, yeah, it is.
Amazing.
It's had an amazing afterlife, Ram Boys, after it was on things like director's notes and it was on Amazon for a bit and it's been on Disney for I think 5 years now. So it's nice to see it still kind of trucking along.
Yeah. And also I always celebrate whenever I see short films on Amazon or on Netflix or anywhere. I'm like, yes, we need a lot more of those sort of general platforms to have short films on them.
Yeah, and I mean I'm a short film kind of obsessive. Like I get so much excitement out of seeing a short by some filmmaker I've not heard of when I go, oh, like, wow, that makes me jealous of the quality of that short because they're
Yeah.
such a difficult thing to get right. So like if big platforms also platform shorts, I think it's a great way for people to see like just how much exciting kind of formally inventive filmmaking there is in the short form.
Absolutely. And I think that I love it as well, filmmakers who go back to short form, because sometimes there's this misconception of you make a couple of shorts, then it's features, and then that's your life. But then filmmakers who go back and play with that again in that format, I've always got huge respect for.
Yeah, and it's you know, the I think the story dictates the length rather than the idea that you progress beyond shorts and then it's something which is beneath you. And
Yeah.
yeah, I've got ideas at the moment for shorts which I hope to kind of get to make at some point and yeah, I love them.
Yeah, no, they're amazing. So moving on, we've moved into shorts, and this is your debut feature, Pillion. And people love it. Well done.
Thank you, thank you.
I mean, it is one of the top films I've seen this year. And it's amazing to be able to work with BIFA on this category. So the Douglas Hickox, the debut directors, the talent in it. And this year there's been a real thread of filmmakers who have come from shorts. And it's just, yeah, the sort of talent that's out there is amazing. And yeah, you've got one of it's the most talked about film, I'd say. People are
It's
chatting.
It's yeah, I guess it's like subject matter lends to people chatting about it. But you're right. I mean, it's been a lot of like fun going and doing the festival circuit with other filmmakers from Britain, first time filmmakers and people who I've kind of been chatting to for like almost a decade now who've come
Yeah.
from shorts like me and then seeing a bunch of us make shorts and make fe our first features in the same year and them kind of be received well. It's been like a really nice, it feels a bit like a like school reunion or something.
Nice. Yeah, I like that concept. Okay, so I did a lot of work and I managed to find the short story by Adam Mars Jones. So I've read it.
Well done. Good
Um,
research.
Thank you. I mean, I am a book nerd. Adaptations, I often get sad if I haven't read the book before I've seen it, just because of the way my mind works. And it's a brilliant short story. I loved it. I'm going to dig into a lot more of his work now. But I guess what I wanted to know, I've heard that you sort of had it off in Rome and in weird places, but it's continuous prose. So it's all, it's a chunk. How were you able to envision it into a feature?
I think you know, turning it into a feature, as I've spoken about, was like a very long, drawn
Yeah,
process. But I guess I look just for two things when I'm reading, looking for like something which I might adapt, and it's like a subject which I think is gonna keep me sustained for 5 years or however long it takes to make a film,
yeah.
and then like a tone or a character or a quality which I think is like gonna inject something different into the kind of parameters that film's gonna sit in. And the novella definitely had both of those things. You know, it has like this tone which kind of bounces between comedy and sincerity. And one sentence you're kind of lolling, and then the do people still say lolling? You're like laughing out loud, and then
I think so. The Gen Zs will probably tell us off, but I'll go for a
yeah,
lol.
is an indication of how long it's taken to make this film. And then, the next sentence, I was kind of confronted, and at
Yeah,
points I was repulsed, and at points I was horny. And I thought that was such an interesting cocktail to try and translate into a film and try and do it. And, the novella obviously works through like first person narration in this instance. So it's kind of the antithesis of what the filmmaking I'm interested in is, where it's, tends to be like image based rather than having some voiceover telling you everything which is going on. And so it was an exciting challenge. And then the subject matter, I mean, it's yeah, consistent with a lot of my shorts. I find like people who don't fit into normative sexual practices and who have to try and like carve their own path and work out their relationship to the kind of social romantic models. It's just something which really interests me. So I knew that I could dedicate that big portion of my 20s and 30s to exploring it.
yeah. I think that's the beautiful thing. It's seeing people who you don't often see on screen and groups of people, and it's that representation, which is so important. Everyone's sort of focused on a lot more. And yeah, I guess you're right. It's got to be something that keeps you interested and visually that you can play with.
Hmm.
Because because I think visually you play with things brilliantly, and it's sort of the cut between this normal suburban British grey life, but then this sort of really enticing, exciting world of the biker gangs. And there's a clash and sort of but a bonding of it throughout. How, yeah, how did you sort of plan for it to be mundane, but at the same time exciting?
I think that yeah, it was interesting to me that like you'd have these two worlds which sat seemingly at odds with one another. So you have like the world of Colin's parents, the
Yeah.
Smiths, which is that kind of mundane suburban life, and then the world of the bikers, which on the surface is all like massive piercings and levers and speed and sex and there's lots of like humor I think to be derived from putting those two things side by side and having a suburban mother give a dom biker some chocolates, that kind of thing. But my hope was also that like that over the course of the film, if you continue to put those things side by side, you'd start to see the ways in which beyond the surface there were overlaps. And there's like a mundanity to some of the practices of the kinky bikers in terms of like the way they speak about stuff which has nothing to do with like BDSM. They like will be improving about about the fact that foxes in the city are like encroaching on the suburbs, and then you'll have like the parents who have their own power dynamic in their relationship. And so I wanted to try and like I guess, tease the audience into seeing where differences actually become kind of similarities.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's sort of, yeah, it goes back to the thing that I'm sort of watching it and it clashes. But then at the same time, I'm like, that's just totally normal. And they're off at the pub and they're just, at the opening scene when, well, not the opening scene, but when we first see Ray's character just sat in the pub having a pint and, a packet of crisps. I love that sort of, yeah, that is just what happens and it's life. I think people a lot of the time think that these kind of communities, they hide and nobody will ever see them and they shouldn't be shown. So I love that you've just shown that no, they're just normal guys.
Yeah, and it was why we wanted to, not shoot all the sex scenes like in the dark. There's a big orgy scene where it's like in the blazing sun in the middle of the countryside, and it's I wanted it to feel very like open and inviting as a scene rather than it to feel like shrouded and kind of horrific in a way.
Oh yeah, I'm glad that you brought that scene up because that was one I wanted to discuss. I loved it. I love the woods and like I love the way you shot the woods. It's beautiful. You've got the nature in it. You've got like that feeling of friends and kinship coming together. And then the orgy for me was almost like the side bit. Like
Yeah,
that wasn't what mattered. And that's how I felt in the way that you dealt with sex. Like, yes, it's important, and there was a sort of brutality to it, a tiny bit, but also it wasn't the main point.
yeah, well, I think like, the nature of the sex in the film, it is, kinky dom sub sex. I wanted to not shy away from the fact that there's brutality involved in that, but that hopefully there are also like shades of tenderness and there's all sorts of, I guess, dynamics between characters going on in those scenes, independent of it just being like a fucking scene. And yeah, it's it's just truthful to me, I guess, that like that characters or people who are involved in these subcultures, it's not like 100% of their lives revolve around sex, no matter how much they might try and make it so. Ray's someone who exists at the very extreme end of like dom sub
Yeah,
relationships. It's a strict dom sub relationship. He tries to enforce a certain kind of way of living all the time, but still the kind of mundanities of his life and the problems of his life and the problems of Colin's life seep in. And, ultimately for Ray, that's kind of a problem. He's someone who is really trying to separate his sexual practices from his kind of holistic life. But
yeah,
for most people, which is why we show all these other biker pillion pairings who have like different forms of intimacy, it's their lives are kind of cohesive.
yeah. No, I love that. I think it's just it's how more films should be. We need to be just talking about things in a really normal, honest life way. In terms of, I think here at Directors Notes, we like to get into the dirty details, like, your setups and yeah, not quite the dirty details, but I'd love to know, especially going back to that scene in the woods, like how many cameras did you have? What was your sort of setup for filming these things to have that sort of wide observational, but really close look?
We only had one camera and my DP Nick Morris can testify to the fact that like when it comes to naming cameras I'm useless, but we had a very useful piece of equipment which is the same. It's not a steady cam, but it's a kind of new version of a Steadicam, which is much lighter and much cheaper actually to rent, and it's what they use on adolescents. And so we used that at the beginning of that shot. We were kind of quite inspired by the cinematography in Roma, the way it's like wide and quite objective,
Mm,
and it uses like slow pans to reveal the scene, and it keeps the audience kind of engaged in the evolution of a scene. And I think that orgy scene, the way we land on the tables with the pillions with their bums out, is a good example of that. In that, we like follow a bike and it feels like a kind of teddy bear's picnic, and we arrive at some poker players, and then one of them leads us to the sex tables. And yeah, it was the thing about that scene, the kind of behind the scenes goss was that for various reasons we were like really short of time, more short of time than on any other day, and it was kind of our biggest set piece. And it turns out that like moving an entire crew into woods on the top of a hill, it's like not a quick thing to do. So I was like really bricking it that we weren't going to get it done. But fortunately, I mean, you can see actually the like sun is really low when we're coming round through those woods. It's like coming through the trees very low. But we just got it.
See, no one would ever know. And sort of talking about the POV as well, in the beginning, we open with a bike. So we're sort of, I don't know, it was quite chaotic at the beginning. I don't think I really knew what I was expecting. But then it's sort of it really lulls us into just where you want us to look. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked openings where you know you kind of find your protagonist rather than landing instantly on them. And
Yeah,
I in this instance like the idea of like opening on a shot of a bike which felt quite like action movie thrillery where we're like cutting between a bike speeding through traffic, and then we switch our POV kind of decisively into this like beaten up old car
yeah.
and track the bike past the car, and that's when we land on Colin's POV. And it kind of for me sets up the themes of the film. There are the in that opening 2 minutes, there are these two worlds: the world of the biker Ray, who's mysterious, and we can't penetrate through his visor, we can't see him, and then there's the world of Colin, which is kind of slightly antiquated and a bit like naff, and they're listening to the song Chariot, which for me calls up Sister Acts. I've now been told that that song is in Scorpio Rising, bizarrely, the Kenneth Anger film, which is
Yeah.
a famous kind of kink gay queer
Yeah.
film. But my reference was very much Sister Acts, and so
I
that's what
love
I
the collision of that. That's brilliant. I want to ask about costumes. Um, Obviously, I know you had a lot of sort of people from the kink world, so there's that authenticity there. But and I know in the book Box Hill, the description of Ray's leather at the beginning is really intense and sexy and amazing.
Mhm.
And all of the costumes I just thought were brilliant. So I'd love, like, how did you make sure they looked right and suited everyone?
Well, yeah, I mean, I lucked out with Grace Snell, who was our costume designer, and in our very first conversations, I said, the book's set in the 70s, and I wanted to update it to the present day, so I wanted the costumes to reflect that, specifically the bike levers, where I think that there's a kind of, I guess, like a collective image of what a sexy biker looks like on film, and that's very much the like Marlon Brando, Tom of Finland kind of levers. And I wanted to do something which kind of, I guess, revived the sexy biker for the present day. So Grace's response to that was to do lots of research and to go to lots of biker meetings. And when she went there, she would take these pictures of guys who were wearing one pieces, which were far more like functional and designed for like modern day speed racing. And so Ray's kind of hero levers, we called them, the cream ones, they have this like go faster ridge on the back, and by like the nature of them being cream, it separates them from that like all black, black, black image. And it also, I think, really helped us in the filming of it because we were filming a lot of those scenes at night to have something which kind of pulled him out of the darkness a bit. And then Grace also like with some assistance from people specifically within the community, she designed like a fetish apron for the character played by Jake Shears, which had like corsetry at the back and was like this amazing latex creation. And then with the kind of Smith world, the world of Colin's family, it was fun having the levers, just trying to find something quite like antithetical to that. So having, I guess, more like dowdy woolen textures and like rusty red clothing or faded green clothing which kind of I always used to use the term Christmas past its sell-by date to describe the kind of what I wanted the texture of the Smiths clothing to be. And yeah, Grace
Okay.
is great at is great at pulling items.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it just all looked lived in, but like it should be exactly there. Nobody was sort of trying.
Hmm.
Which, yeah, no, sort of, yeah, the authenticity to it was brilliant. I spoke earlier about the pace, and sort of converting that from the book. Was a lot of that developed in the edit? Sort of the snapshots between the Smith life, the mundane, and then the speed of the bike life.
I think it was I mean definitely honed in the edit, and
Mm.
me and my editor Gareth, there was like at least 6 months, I think, more of like playing around with rhythms. But the the contrasts were always there in the script actually. I always knew that that was something we could lean on to keep the audience like engaged and to create quite a propulsive feel in a film where actually the dynamic between Colin and Ray for the first part at least is quite unchanging. I was like, okay, well, where are you going to get the propulsion from in this narrative? And Colin's family became part of that answer.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. And yeah, and the massive sort of differences between them as well, which, yeah, I mean, I'm a Smith, but I can
Are
see
you?
my,
Your son,
yeah,
your son
I'm
is Smith.
Sarah Smith.
Are you? Well, yeah, I should have cast you. You could have been an aunt.
I would love that. What I'd like to know, so first feature, and this was obviously a long time in sort of the adaptation and the making. How was that whole process in sort of gearing up for your first feature and knowing there's a huge weight on it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the fact that I spent, a pretty long time between Boys and Pillion,
Yeah.
it made that weight feel kind of significant. And I was pretty nervous at times, but it was it was like ultimately just I mean I like loved the shoot, which was such a surprise to me because I historically have found shooting quite like stress has been the presiding emotion, and actually with this we had I was just incredibly well supported by the production company Element and the cast and crew, and we managed to create this kind of sense, I think, that like there were lots of people stepping up in the roles they were doing on this film, and I think everyone felt like they had skin in the game and that they like really could take authority for their portion of the film and they could contribute, and so it just yeah I was with Alexander and Harry actually a couple of days ago, and we were all speaking about how like because it's kind of a year ago since we finished shooting, and just what a fun shoot it was, and kind of how nice it's been that the film has had this afterlife and these people who we work with have got to kind of enjoy the ride as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so important. I find that interesting as a director that the shoot you find the most stressful.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully Pillion will have changed that because I did enjoy it. But I mean, I'm a warrior, and I think that you spend so long gearing up to the shoot. In my case, like 8 years or whatever,
Yeah.
that there's a lot of pressure. You can put a lot of pressure on yourself to feel like you need to deliver something, and there is like obviously a huge amount of money put into films, and with that comes like a big sense of pressure. So I think it's certainly feels kind of logical to be freaking out to me, but I learned on this one how to like let go of that slightly, and genuinely enjoy it. And so I'm going to try and take that forward to my next project and be like, okay, what was it about this which made it such an enjoyable shoot, and how can you replicate that?
Yeah. I guess it's the size thing, isn't it? Because, with shorts, there can be like three, four of you. It's really small. And then with features, you're just massively multiplying that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like turning up on set on a short is a very different experience to turning up on set on a feature where there's like, a catering van and 16 like trucks in the driveway and like all of this apparatus, which can feel intimidating. But my producers did very well to like, I'm sure there, in fact, I know there was like so much going on behind the scenes, as with every film, which is highly, highly stressful, and they really like protected me from that and just let me think that everything was going great and I just had to worry about the day ahead of me.
Yeah, producers are their own different incredible breed. I've got so much respect
Yeah.
for everything they do. They're like the ultimate swan, aren't they? So
What
the feet,
head above water? Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So the feet are going mad, but they're just gliding along.
Exactly, exactly. I Emma Norton and Lee Greenbridge, who along with Ed Guiney and Andrew Lowe were my kind of what, key producers. I think they would very much appreciate that swan analogy.
Nice. Okay, great. You can tell them that. And so, what about, I mean, for you, I can only imagine how intense it is. Like, it's your first feature and it's done really well, but it's done really well. So, you must have had like a really heavy press tour, sort of doing all the interviews, all the festivals as well. Has that just been this sort of mind explosion?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, mind explosion is a good way to, well, like mind, body, out of body.
Everything.
Everything's just exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it is. There's been so many kind of pinch me moments in terms of getting into Cannes and then having that experience, then going to these other festivals which I'd always dreamt about going and getting to like sit, we had a played at London a couple of weeks ago and it was like a dream of mine to play at the Royal Festival Hall in London and the screening was like so special and my family were there and yeah, it's like it's I certainly haven't got like used to those experiences yet, in that they still like I found it hard to concentrate on anything else while this process is ongoing. I'm like trying to gear up to other work at the moment and I'll still find myself being like, but in a week and a half the film's playing here and I wonder how that's gonna go. And then like suddenly my mind is just but but it's like an enormous privilege and like a dream come true that the film has found an audience so far which has been receptive to it. And I know that if I'm lucky enough to continue making films, there'll be films down the line which like don't have this reception. So I'm trying to just like really savor it, particularly now we're kind of coming towards the wide release and the end of it.
Yeah, I think it's the community as well, that I said earlier that have really been able to see themselves portrayed and get involved with it. I know you had a screening in Brighton last night, and my
Yeah.
friend was there, and he was like, "It's awesome!" And a screening of Pillion, loads of guys in leather, and he's like, "I'm wearing a shark hoodie." I was like, "Well done."
Well, there's room for the shark hoodies too, but yeah, it's been like it's great because the film is I didn't set out to make like a blueprint for how a dom sub relationship should work, and I think that the film asks like difficult questions around consent and abuse, and as well as whether the relationship is good for Colin or not. But there's been so many people from the scene who have come to the film and said, "Oh, I like really saw aspects of myself in those characters, or I saw like." A relationship which I've had in that relationship, or even just like I felt it was like refreshing to have my desires put on screen in a way which didn't feel like they were just being taken the mick out of. And I love the fact that like, we've only been doing preview screenings so far, but at every screening I've been to, there's been like at least a few people dressed up in their fetish wear and even like we were in LA earlier this week, which is such a crazy thing to say to me. But yeah, I was in LA earlier this week and
Hasn't changed at all.
yeah. And these like four pups turned up from the LA scene to the screening and they were like so sweet afterwards and a couple of them were like in tears because the film had moved them and I as someone who's quite like emotionally constipated personally, I find it really moving when a film which I've worked on has that effect on people. So yeah, it's been definitely like a highlight, a big highlight of this process has been both making it with people from that world and then seeing people from that world respond to it in such a like warm way.
Yeah, because a lot of time with filmmaking, and especially I think short filmmaking, you can kind of you don't really know the reception. Obviously, there are amazing festivals, and that's one of my favorite things to ask directors. But apart from that, you're not you've got very little feedback on how people are receiving your film, and what they feel about it. And then you've suddenly got this on this massive scale.
Yeah, yeah, it is exciting and terrifying that the idea it's made me really conscious that because like I guess Rem Boys was the short which I made, which made the biggest splash, and you'd go into meetings and have people say, "I love your short," but you wouldn't have any like public feedback.
Yeah.
Whereas now you have Letterboxd and things like that, where it's like I've actually stopped looking because I was like my skin's not tough enough for people saying shit. But I like I it's really exciting that the film is creating enough, I guess, noise that you're getting people from all over the place coming in, like watching it and even feeling like they want to leave a review.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's skin is strong enough for Letterboxd.
No,
And it's one of these things as well. As soon as you let the internet have its say, you've got no idea what's going to come.
no, for sure, for sure. And actually, like I say that, but because I get sent stuff from Letterboxd, and I think that even the people who hate it, they're so funny. It gives me like it encourages me in terms of like just how funny the like non-famous critic is because they'll write stuff where I'm like, God, that's a real zinger, or yeah,
But then the
you'll have
problem is you want to reply and engage with it.
no, I just screenshot them and then send them to my producers, and that's my tactic.
Nice, nice. Let them deal with it. Okay, so we've spoken about World of Shorts, we've spoken about Pillion. Now, I want to ask you, what are your favorite shorts, either that you've seen recently or your favorite shorts of all time? This is something in this series that I'm asking people. It's great.
That's such a good question, and this is something which like I will have thought about this long and hard in the past. I haven't been able to see I haven't been seeing shorts programs for a couple of years, so
Yeah,
these are
fair.
a little bit out of date. But there's a let me just look up to make sure that the name is right.
No worries. I've been speaking to people and I've had sort of these fun games. I'm like, right, if you describe it, then I might know it. So I managed to do
It's
that
a
with
short
cows.
film. There's a short film by someone called Q Yang,
Mm,
and I know that it played at London. It is called A Gentle Night by Q Yang.
okay.
Q Yang, Qiu Yang, Yang. And I think that like he also made a short called She Runs, which was very good, but they're both like formally very interesting. There's one moment of handheld in each where like it's static frames, then it breaks out of a static frame for a moment of like high intensity handheld, and it's like both of them like genius, and they do what I want from a short, which is like make me see something new. It's like a new way of filming, and they both blew my mind. And what's another short which has really stuck with me? Oh, you know what? I saw a short by is she called Garrett Bradley?
Okay, I don't recognize the name.
She's a documentary maker, an American documentary maker, and it was her short. She made a feature documentary called Time, which was about the like American prison system. But I saw a short which she had made on a similar subject matter. Oh, it's called Alone,
Okay,
and it's really worth checking out. Again, it's like takes a subject matter which I think has been approached a lot and then kind of re-envisions it formally in a way which felt like remarkable and exciting. So
nice,
those would be my two.
nice. Yeah, I like that. And the excitement is huge. Because you were saying about doing something new. Do you know there's an Instagram account called Eye Candy?
Yes, I do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
I
great.
love that because it breaks it down. So then when you like, it kind of relates to director's notes. You're asking how people do that. But I'm always on there. I'm like, how'd they do that? It's
Yeah,
amazing.
they're very good with music videos,
Yeah.
particularly. And I saw there's actually there's a director called Camille Summers Valley. Do you know about her? She's a music
No.
video director, like commercials, music video director and photographer. And I believe she's making a short with a producer who worked on Wren Boys called Sora Bacon, but she made a music video for a an artist called Meta, I think. I don't know how you say it, but anyway, that music video was the last like short piece of content which really exploded my mind. I saw that I think a year ago, and it's all done using those kind of digital projection screens, and it's like
Right.
fantastic.
Nice. Okay, great. No, I love this because then I'm introduced to new directors and pieces of work that I didn't know before. So it's great.
Yeah.
So obviously you said, it's a bit hard sort of working on what's next and what's coming, but can you give us a teaser of where you're going to go?
Uh, I'm writing a film for another director at the moment. I don't think I can say what or who, which is very boring, but it hasn't been announced yet. And then I'm just starting kind of developing my next feature project. I'm doing it with Element, the same people who did Pillion, and and it's at such an early stage that I again feel like I can't give you anything interesting to say about it other than it is potentially at the moment going to be about a sort of, not sure you'd call it a subculture, but like a female subculture as opposed to a male one.
Nice. Okay, I'm hooked. I'm in.
You're so not. That's like the worst. It's actually just not worth talking about things when they're so infant because it's like such a boring sell that. But
I mean, a female story, I'm sold on that alone.
it's just when you take it when you remove it from any context, it just sounds like a pathetically like a pathetic attempt to like curry some. Yeah. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
Ah, okay, well, we'll end there. There we go.
Well, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. It was
No,
really nice
thanks
to
for taking the
speak to you
time.
and look after those plants, neglect them well.
See, they thrive through neglect.
Good stuff.
Thanks
Cheers.
so much, Harry.